Oak, you ever build something with your own two hands, only to have someone come along and treat it like dirt beneath their tires? That bridge wasn't just wood and bolts to me. It was a promise to my late wife, to my land, to the peace we dreamed of when we escaped the chaos of the city. But the Homeowners Association, those people, didn't care. They saw a shortcut, a convenience. So they sent their massive cement trucks across it, day after day, until one day I decided enough was enough. And when I set my trap, it wasn't out of hate. It was out of love. But they'll never forget what happened next. I still remember the day I finished building the bridge. It spanned the quiet creek that ran along the back of my property. A lazy ribbon of silver that caught the sunlight just right on calm mornings. My wife, Claire, used to sit out there with her tea, humming old country tunes while the water whispered below. When she passed 3 years ago, I promised myself I'd keep the place just the way she loved it. Simple, peaceful, and ours. The bridge was part of that promise. Every plank was hand-cut, sanded, and sealed. It wasn't a fancy structure, but it was strong, built for the weight of my pickup and the tractor. Maybe a few friends visiting for Sunday supper. What it wasn't built for were 10-ton cement trucks belonging to the HOA construction committee. They were expanding the neighborhood again, slapping up new, modern family homes across what used to be open meadows. And the HOA board, run by a slick, talking real estate guy named Dennis Kavanaugh, didn't like that my property was the only way to reach the new build site without detouring 3 miles around. I told them no, repeatedly. Dennis smiled, like a man who thought he could buy everything with charm. "Come on, Mr. Ryland," he said, flashing that real estate grin. "It's just a few trucks a day for a couple of weeks. We'll make it worth your while." I told him again no. My bridge wasn't rated for industrial trucks. It wasn't public property. It was mine. But the next morning, I woke to the groan of diesel engines. 2 cement trucks were rumbling across my bridge, planks creaking, bolts groaning, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I ran out barefoot, waving my arms. "Get off! Get off my bridge!" The driver just shrugged like it wasn't his problem. "We got permission from the HOA." He yelled through the window. "Permission?" I spat. "It's my land." By the time they left, muddy ruts scarred the path, and one of the planks near the far end was cracked clean through. I stood there in silence, listening to the water trickle below, feeling something inside me snap with that plank. That night, I called Dennis again. No answer. The next day, 3 more trucks came through. The sound of them rolling across became torture. Every creak of the bridge felt like another piece of my peace breaking apart. I started keeping a log. Every truck, every time, every damage they caused. I filed complaints, sent letters, even went to the county office. They all said the same thing. "We'll look into it." But no one did. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the water gold, I stood on the bridge and felt the weight of it all pressing down. The loneliness, the anger, the helplessness. And that's when I realized, if no one was going to protect what I built, then I would. That night, I sat in my workshop, surrounded by the scent of cedar and oil, staring at the old blueprints I'd drawn for the bridge. I traced the beams and braces with my fingers, thinking about Claire. She used to say, "If they can't respect your boundaries, make them wish they had." I smiled for the first time in weeks. I wasn't planning to hurt anyone, just to teach them a lesson they'd never forget, the kind that made people think twice before stomping over what doesn't belong to them. So I got to work, quietly, carefully, and with a purpose that felt almost holy. By the time I was done, the bridge looked the same as ever, but it wasn't. And when the next cement truck came rumbling down that hill, I was ready. The morning they came again, the sky was the color of wet steel. Low clouds, damp air, and that smell of rain that makes everything feel heavier. I knew they'd come. They always did when they thought I'd given up. But this time, I was waiting. The night before, I'd made my final adjustments, secured the pressure latches, loosened the crossbeams beneath the decking, and set up my old trail cameras along the trees. It wasn't a dangerous trap, not truly. I wasn't about to risk anyone's life. But humiliation, public embarrassment, a reminder that respect goes both ways. Oh, I was more than ready to serve that. I'd replaced the central planks of the bridge with a reinforced, but hollowed section, rigged to buckle under weight above a specific limit. Anything over 6 tons, like a cement truck. Beneath, I'd built a false base with a grid of chicken wire, thick enough to stop a full collapse, but thin enough to drop the heavy tires, just deep enough to sink and wedge the truck. The creek wasn't deep, just enough to make the recovery a nightmare. That morning, I sat on the porch, coffee in hand, watching through binoculars. The first truck came around the bend, its engine growling. Then another behind it. I felt my jaw tighten. The first driver barely slowed. They were used to it now, used to cutting across my land like they owned it. The front tires hit the bridge, wood groaning. I could almost hear Claire's voice in my head. Soft, teasing. "They'll learn, Sam." They always do. And then it happened. A sharp crack split the air, followed by a deep whoom as the bridge's center dropped 2 feet. The front of the truck lurched downward, the driver slammed on the brakes, and concrete slurry sloshed out of the open mixer. The back tires spun uselessly in the air, spewing mud and panic. The second truck screeched to a stop just in time. The first one. It was stuck, wedged right in the middle of my creek, tilted like some giant beast caught mid-stride. I couldn't help it. I laughed. A deep, raw, honest laugh that came from months of bottled frustration finally breaking free. By the time Dennis and the HOA board arrived, 2 hours later, the scene was chaos. A tow truck was there, a county officer too, and half the construction crew standing around scratching their heads. Dennis stormed over to me, his face red and his fancy shoes caked in mud. "What the hell did you do, Ryland?" I took a long sip of my coffee. "Looks like your driver didn't respect the weight limit. There's a sign right there. 5 tons. He's almost double that. You rigged this," he snapped. "You could have killed someone." I met his eyes, steady and calm. "No one's hurt. But that bridge, it's private property, and every time you send a truck over it, you trespassed. You've got cameras. So do I. I've got footage from the last 2 weeks." The officer turned to Dennis, frowning. "He's right. The property line's clear as day. If you had permission, it would have needed to be in writing." Dennis's face drained of color. He started stammering about community benefit and temporary access, but the officer wasn't having it. The tow company quoted them a recovery cost that made Dennis's jaw drop. And me. I just leaned against the fence, quiet and still, like the creek below us. When they finally dragged that cement truck out, the bridge looked ruined, cracked, muddy, sagging at one edge. But that was fine. It had served its purpose. Later that week, I filed a claim for property damage, attached all the photos, videos, and repair costs. The county sided with me. The HOA was ordered to pay full compensation for damages, including legal fees. Dennis tried to fight it, but the board turned on him fast once they saw the footage. He resigned a month later. It took me 3 months to rebuild the bridge. I worked slow this time. Patient, steady. Neighbors came by to watch. A few even offered to help. Funny thing, once word spread about what happened, people started talking. Turns out, I wasn't the only one the HOA had pushed around. My little act of rebellion gave others a spark of courage too. One woman, Martha from down the road, told me, "You did what we've all wanted to do for years. Stand up to them. They think money means authority. You reminded them that it doesn't." That meant more to me than the settlement check ever could. When I finally hammered the last nail in place, I set Claire's old teacup on the railing and filled it with wildflowers from the edge of the creek. The water ran clear again, carrying away the last bits of concrete dust and old anger. That night, as the sun went down, I sat on the bridge and watched the light dance across the ripples. The air smelled clean, peaceful. For a while, I thought I'd lost that peace forever. That once the HOA started tearing through my land, the quiet life I'd built was gone for good. But sometimes, you have to fight for peace. Sometimes you have to remind people that kindness and patience aren't weakness. They're choices, strong ones. I looked out over the water, feeling the cool breeze brush against my face, and smiled. If you stood there that evening, you might have seen it too. The reflection of a man who'd finally made things right, and the ghost of a woman smiling back at him from the other side of the creek. The bridge stood steady again, between what was lost and what I'd reclaimed. Moral of the story: when others cross your boundaries, you don't have to meet their cruelty with rage. Just enough wisdom, and maybe a touch of cleverness, can remind the world that respect is earned, not taken.